What in the world's going on politically? We do have Craig Robinson from the IowaRepublican.com and Jeff Ling from Ling Strategies in studio with us. So, what's going on, guys? Anything new?
No, pretty dull out there.
Pretty dull?
Yeah, no one's making news.
Anybody say anything controversial?
Controversial?
No.
You know, I don't know if what Hillary's been talking about lately.
She said anything in negative connotations?
No, she's coming to Iowa.
Ah!
Yes, but that's not the news of the day. Because, Craig, I think there was a speech in South Carolina, maybe, that has gotten some attention since last night. Of course, Donald Trump made his bizarre statement that he would ban all Muslims from entering the United States, and even more incredulous than banning all Muslims just based on religion. He would ban any U.S. citizen who happens to be Muslim who travels outside of the country from coming back in, which is beyond comprehension. And you know, that's the remarks that are really sort of getting a lot of attention today. It is a whole new level. Most of the Republican candidates, by the way, have already come out and trashed this statement. I think Jeb Bush said that Trump is unhinged.
Right.
Almost all of them. Ted Cruz, by the way, is the one who hasn't. He said, "Not my position."
There's a little political gamesmanship in everything that goes on in politics. I mean, surprise, surprise. This really does put Ted Cruz in a box, because I think, you know, Ted Cruz wants to be this hard-charging conservative outsider, and here's Trump saying, "Okay, well, here's where I'm at." Which we will all agree that this isn't where maybe anyone should be at. However, it does address a problem. I mean, we had a terrorist attack in this country, and what happens after something like that, I think we will kind of overreact. We get very protectionist, and this is one way, maybe not the best way, but this is a way in which you can address it. And so Trump's out this morning saying, well, Ted, where are you? And he says, well, that's not my plan. Well, that's not what the point of this is. Mm-hmm. He's now going to have to come up with his plan of what are you going to do on foreign policy to keep us safe. So there is a lot of gamesmanship here that we'll have to watch. And I think that it really does put Ted Cruz in a look. I guess if you're gonna, these are the two candidates that are going, they're neck and neck in Iowa. You can kind of feel it now. You can, you get a sense of this is where this race is at. And in Iowa, Cruz has these, conservative activists who listen to talk radio, and this is a position that I think, let's be honest, I think plays to that crowd a little bit. And so Cruz has to be careful here, but if you're too careful, you're going to end up lumped with him, and then that could be bad too.
Yeah, I mean, the one challenge though on this, and I do think Trump has crossed lines before, but never really quite like this. And this is not a game. I mean, he's running for president of the United States.
Yeah, but don't you think, to be totally honest, a lot of his followers, he struck a chord with a lot of his followers. He said what a lot of them were thinking.
There is anger about what's going on.
Right.
There is no doubt about that. But what is the response to that anger? Do you say we're going to discriminate based on religion? I mean, that's going to be the response that we take. I mean, Dick Cheney said that our country was founded on religious liberty, that his ancestors came here as Puritans because they were they couldn't live in Europe, and so they came here. I mean, this is foundational to our Constitution.
But you have had candidates in this race, because I'm not with Trump on this particular issue. But again, when we were talking about Syrian refugees, it was Ted Cruz who said, we're not going to take any Syrian Muslim refugees, but we'll take the Christian refugees.
Well, Ben Carson said that.
And again, so we've had multiple candidates stake out a position that's really not all that different. And so for me, I'm watching this at Iowa events take place, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. You also advocate for religious liberty. How can you be for religious liberty and then have a religious litmus test as to who can travel to this country, who can immigrate to this country? And I think the issue of terrorism and homeland security, you can't just apply kind of the lowest common denominator and say, that's my policy. I think there's more work that we can do to say, hey, this doesn't work. I mean, we've had this conversation about the no-fly list. Should people who are on the no-fly list, be able to purchase firearms? Well, how about if you're here on a visa, meaning that you're a guest of the United States? Maybe you shouldn't be able to, purchase firearms that way. Right. I think we can have a much more intelligent conversation and grown-up conversation about all these issues than what we're having. And unfortunately, in America, the last place to have a grown-up conversation these days seems to be in a presidential race.
Do you think Trump's latest statement will be the thing that kicks one of the legs out from under the stool?
No. I don't think it's going to hurt him. I mean, I said that to CNN last night. I said, look, I think that this strikes a chord with people. Mm-hmm. And
because we are upset, like you said, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you watch what happens in Paris. We still remember 9/11. You look at what happened in San Bernardino, and this is a reaction. There's no other plan, and I think it's a response to
Is this a response to President Barack Obama
yes,
coming
it
out
is.
And saying what he said about how we just need to stay cool and continue as normal, but yet look at our gun laws and things like that?
Yeah, I think that, I think all Republicans kind of lashed out about how Obama took this. Mm-hmm. And of course, you're right, but I also think that, again, this isn't necessarily a gun problem. This isn't a Second Amendment issue, acts of terrorism. Look, they're terrorists. They can smuggle stuff in. There's a lot of things that can happen. You can steal things in this country. So just passing, and California has some of the toughest gun laws in the country. And so just passing more laws isn't going to keep us safe. And so, I mean, I think this really charges this discussion we're going to have with a lot more emotion maybe than it would have had Trump not rolled out this proposal.
I'm angry and upset about what's been happening in our own country and around the world, but what he said last night scares the bejesus out of me.
Me too, because if you are of any other faith, I mean, I grew up in Eastern Iowa, and it's like, I thought people, if you weren't a Lutheran and you weren't a Catholic, I was like, what are you? Okay. That's my Eastern Iowa bias, Yes, and Mom wouldn't let me go to church with you, with the neighbor kids. But look, I think that's scary to have a religious litmus test. I mean, that is absolutely the opposite of what America was founded as.
No, that's right. And the great irony to me in this whole thing is Cruz and Huckabee and all these other guys have come to Iowa in front of evangelicals and talked about the religious persecution that Obamacare is putting on America. And that we are discriminating against religions on issues like abortion and all that sort of thing, and then embracing a program which says we're just going to discriminate everyone who happens to be Muslim. They're not going to be allowed into the country. It is bizarre to me that they can embrace both of those at the same time.
We have to wrap this up. This is a conversation we could have for a really long time, and I'm sure we will again. Really quickly, just to give on the Democratic side, you said Hillary is making her way to the state.
Yes, we do have a Democratic race. Hillary Clinton is coming back to the state. She's going to be in Waterloo and then at Living History Farms tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.